Think about the first thing you reached for this morning. Maybe it was coffee, maybe a cigarette, maybe just the sugar in your tea. That small pull, that quiet little need, feels completely modern. Like a habit your stressed, 21st century life invented. It isn't. That craving is one of the oldest things inside you. Older than your country, older than money, older than farming. In fact, older than our species itself. Millions of years ago, our ape ancestors were already eating fermented fruit off the forest floor. Soft, sweet, and faintly alcoholic. The ones who loved that feeling ate more and survived. You did not invent your weakness for it. You inherited it. But here is the part that should stop you. When archaeologists dig up the oldest evidence of humans getting high, they don't find it hidden in shame or thrown away like trash. They find it in tombs, in temples, buried with kings and shamans. For most of human history, what we now call drugs were holy, a way to touch the gods, to heal, to see. So the real question isn't whether ancient humans got high. They did, everywhere, for thousands of years. It's what they reached for, why they couldn't stop, and what the craving you woke up with is really an echo of. Start with the oldest craving of all, alcohol. And to find its beginning, you have to leave humans behind entirely. Go back millions of years into the trees. Your distant ape ancestors lived on fruit. And fruit, when it falls and ripens too far, begins to ferment. Yeast eats its sugar and leaves behind something new. Ethanol, alcohol. To most animals, that overripe fruit is useless, even toxic. But somewhere back then, an ancestor of yours changed. A single tiny mutation rewrote one enzyme in the body, and suddenly that ancestor could break down alcohol and eat the fallen, fermenting fruit no one else could. That fruit was free food, easy calories on the forest floor. The apes who could stomach it ate well and lived. The taste for that faint, boozy sweetness was rewarded by survival itself. Scientists call this the drunken monkey idea. The pull you feel toward a drink may be tens of millions of years old. Older than walking upright. Older than language. Older than fire. You were practically built to be drawn to it. Now race forward to the first real humans. They carried that ancient taste with them everywhere they went. And once they could gather and store food, something changed. They didn't just stumble on fermented fruit anymore. They learned to make the magic happen on purpose. Picture it. A pot of fruit, or grain, or honey, left with water. Wild yeast drifts in. The mixture bubbles. Days pass. And what comes out is not spoiled. It is something that changes how you feel. The oldest solid traces of a brewed drink go back around 9,000 years. In a place called Jiahu in China, scientists found the residue inside ancient pottery. A brew of wild grapes, hawthorn fruit, rice, and honey. A recipe for getting drunk, 9,000 years old. And here is a thought that unsettles a lot of people. We have always assumed farming came first, to make bread. But some researchers suspect it was the other way around, that humans first planted grain not to eat, but to brew. That the craving for beer may have helped pull us into farming and into civilization itself. Think about that the next time you raise a glass. The drink in your hand may be one of the reasons cities exist at all, but alcohol was only the beginning. Wherever humans went, they searched the land for a way out of ordinary awareness, and the planet was full of plants that offered exactly that. Different continents, different plants, the same deep hunger. Travel to the ancient Near East, and you meet the most famous of them all, the opium poppy. Slice its seed pod, and it weeps a milky sap. Dry that sap, and you have opium, a substance that kills pain and floods the body with warmth. The ancient Sumerians knew it well. On clay tablets thousands of years old, they wrote its name with two symbols, Hulgil. It translates roughly to the joy plant. They were not hiding it. They named it for the feeling it gave, and the poppy spread across the ancient world like a secret everyone shared. Opium reached Europe more than 7,000 years ago. Scientists have even found its traces on the teeth of a man buried back then. The drug, still locked in the mouth of a person dead for millennia. On the island of Crete, they carved a goddess crowned with poppy pods, a deity of the very plant that carried them out of their pain. Now turn east to the cold grasslands of Asia. Here, a different plant took hold: cannabis. Its seeds show up at sites more than 10,000 years old. But the most vivid story comes from a fierce people called the Scythians. An ancient Greek writer described their ritual in detail. They would build a small tent, heat stones inside it, throw cannabis onto the hot rocks, and sit in the rising smoke, howling with joy. And archaeologists have found the proof: burnt cannabis in their frozen tombs. They did not just grow it, they breathed it in to reach another world. Now cross the ocean to the mountains of South America. High in the thin air of the Andes, people chewed the leaf of the coca plant. It dulled hunger, it softened the cold, it gave the strength to work at brutal altitude. People have been chewing it there for around 8,000 years. It was woven so deep into life that it was offered to the gods and buried with the dead. Now move to warm southern Asia and the Pacific, where another habit took hold: the chewing of the betel nut, a mild stimulant wrapped in a leaf tucked into the cheek. People have chewed it for nearly 5,000 years, and it left a permanent mark. It stains the teeth a deep, dark red. Archaeologists can spot a betel chewer instantly by the color in their ancient skulls. Then there are the plants that did not just lift the mood, but tore the doors of reality wide open. In the Americas especially, humans found a whole pharmacy of the mind. The peyote cactus, eaten in the desert for visions. The towering San Pedro cactus, brewed in the Andes for thousands of years. Sacred mushrooms, eaten to speak with gods. Brews and snuffs that hurled the mind into other realms entirely. These were not casual highs. They were terrifying, sacred journeys, taken on purpose. And the people who guided them held one of the most powerful roles in the tribe: the shaman, the one who could leave the body and return with answers. In a dry cave in Bolivia, archaeologists found a 1,000-year-old pouch. Inside was a shaman's complete kit: snuff tubes, a small tray, bundles of plants. And when they tested the residue, they found something staggering: traces of several powerful substances at once: cocaine, and the ingredients of ayahuasca, a brew that opens the mind for hours. One ancient person carrying a whole world of altered states in a single bag. And almost everywhere these substances appear, one thing connects them. They are not found where people simply lived and ate and slept. They are found in graves, in temples, in sacred ground, buried beside the most important people in the society, treated not as a vice, but as a treasure. This is the detail that changes the whole story. Now think about tobacco, a plant we treat as ordinary today. To the peoples of the Americas, it was anything but. It was burned as an offering, blown as a blessing, smoked to seal a sacred bond. They even invented something we still do: pulling smoke and powder up through the nose. The first humans to snort a substance did it to reach the divine. Over and over, across every continent, you find the same pattern: a plant that changes the mind, lifted up as holy. A craving, dressed in ceremony. A high, turned into a prayer. So step back and ask the real question: why? Why did humans everywhere reach so hard for these feelings? Part of the answer is in your own head, right now. Deep in your brain sits a reward system. It evolved for good reasons, to make food, water, and connection feel good. When you do something that helped your ancestors survive, it releases a chemical pulse, a small wave of pleasure, a signal: do that again, and these ancient substances pick that lock. They flood that same system with a rush it was never built to handle. The brain lights up and screams, whatever that was, do it again. That is the trap, and it is wired into all of us. But for ancient humans, the pull was about far more than pleasure. Think about the world they lived in: pain with no painkillers, cold with no escape, fear with no end. A plant that numbed agony was not a luxury. It was mercy. A leaf that gave you strength to climb a freezing mountain was survival. And a brew that seemed to let you speak to your dead in a world ruled by spirits, that was the most precious thing imaginable. These substances were medicine and courage and religion all at once. Now picture yourself in their place. You have lost someone you love, and no one can tell you where they went. There are no books, no science, no answers. And then an elder hands you a sacred brew, and for one night, you feel that person near you again. Would you call that a weakness or a gift? For ancient humans, the altered state was a doorway to the gods, to the dead, to healing, to the answers ordinary life would not give. And here is the crucial part. They almost never walked through it alone. The substance came wrapped in ritual. There was a time, a place, a guide, a reason. You did not take it whenever you wanted, for no reason at all. You took it inside a ceremony that held you. The ritual was a container. It gave the experience meaning, and it gave it limits. The community decided when. The guide decided how. The gods gave it a purpose. And that container may be the most important thing of all, because it is the exact thing the modern world has lost. Think honestly about your own cravings again. The coffee, the drink, the scroll, the sugar, the smoke. The hunger underneath them is the same one your ancestors felt, the pull toward a shift in how you feel. But look at how you answer it now. Alone, often, on a couch, on a phone, in a parked car. No ceremony, no guide, no sacred reason, no limit. The container is gone, and there is one more thing that changed, and it changed everything. The substances themselves. For almost all of history, a high was weak and wrapped in plants. A leaf to chew, a fruit gone soft, a bitter root. Then humans got clever. We learned to distill, to concentrate, to purify. Weak beer became hard liquor. The poppy's gentle sap became morphine, and then heroin. The coca leaf, chewed for energy for 8,000 years, became pure cocaine. We took ancient ceremonial plants and stripped them down to their most powerful, most dangerous core. The craving is prehistoric, but the things we now feed it are brand new and far stronger than any body was built for. That is the real shape of modern addiction, an ancient hunger meeting industrial-strength chemicals with no ritual left to hold it. The hunger was never the problem. Your ancestors carried the same one and built temples around it. What changed is the world we let it loose in. We kept the craving and threw away the ceremony. We made the substances stronger and the meaning weaker. We turned a sacred doorway into a private trap. And that is why this ancient story matters so much right now. Because the pull you feel is not a personal failing. It is one of the most human things about you. It connects you to every ancestor who ever sought something more than ordinary life. They reached for the warmth of fermented fruit. You reach for a glass at the end of a hard day. They chewed leaves to push through exhaustion. You pour another coffee to make it to the evening. They breathed sacred smoke to quiet their minds. You scroll, or sip, or light up to quiet yours. The substances change. The hunger does not. It has traveled, unbroken, from a fallen fruit on a forest floor, all the way to the cup sitting beside you right now. So what were ancient humans addicted to? In the end, the same things you are. Relief from pain, escape from cold, a break from fear, a moment of joy, a sense of connection, a glimpse of something larger than themselves. They just understood something we have half forgotten. That this hunger is powerful. That it deserves respect and ceremony and limits. That a doorway out of ordinary life is both sacred and dangerous. They wrapped their cravings in ritual because they sensed how strong those cravings were. We unwrapped ours and called ourselves free. And we are still learning, the hard way, what that cost. None of this is a reason to envy them or to fear yourself. It is a reason to understand the pull a little better. To see your morning craving not as a modern flaw, but as an ancient inheritance, older than your species. A signal from deep in your design, doing exactly what it was built to do. The difference between worship and addiction was never really the substance itself. It was the meaning, the limits, and the people around you. Ancient humans rarely chased the feeling alone. They chased it together, for a reason, inside a story bigger than themselves. Maybe that is the part worth remembering. Not that they got high, but that they almost never did it in the dark by themselves. Next time you feel that familiar little pull, the reach for the cup, the glass, the screen, you do not have to fear it, and you do not have to obey it. You can just see it for what it is. A craving as old as the first ape that loved fermented fruit, as old as the first shaman who breathed sacred smoke, as old as the first mourner who drank to feel a lost face near again. It is the deep human reach for something beyond the ordinary, and it has been with us every step since long before we were even us. Your ancestors built whole religions around that reach. They carved gods from it. They buried treasures of it with their dead. They knew something we are only now relearning. That the hunger inside you is not a weakness. It is one of the oldest forces in the human story. The question was never whether you would feel it. You always will. They always did. The only question is what you wrap around it: meaning or emptiness, connection or isolation, a ritual that holds you, or a habit that quietly takes you. Ancient humans, with almost nothing, often chose the first. We, with everything, too often choose the second. Their cravings and yours are the same ancient fire. They built a hearth around theirs to keep it safe and warm. We too often let ours burn alone, so the next time you reach for that feeling, remember where it came from. A hunger millions of years old, still asking quietly to be treated as something sacred.